Okay, so let me turn it over to John, KM4MDR. He has a couple comments about the Friday night potluck. You can either do it up front where you are. Okay, here he is.
Good evening, everybody. I'm John, KM4MDR, and this year I'm coordinating the potluck for Field Day Setup Day. Just to give you an update, we currently have 30 folks who've confirmed that they will plan to be guests. I have a number of folks that have confirmed that have not told me what they plan to bring yet. I'd sure appreciate it if y'all would let me know so we can kind of make sure we don't get 30 plates of coleslaw. That'd be nice. I tend to leave it fairly open for people to bring. Right now we got a pretty good mix, but if you've told me you're coming and you haven't told us what you're bringing, you've got my email, km4mdr@yahoo.com, and just let me know as soon as possible. In terms of signups, anybody that hasn't signed up, let me know. There's information out on the reflector and a couple of emails that I've sent to let you know how to contact me either by phone or by email, etc. What information we need from you, such as your call sign and your name and how many guests will be coming, and if you have any special needs, medical or other needs or dietary needs that we can try and accommodate and help out with, let me know that as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Bruce.
Thank you very much. If it wasn't such a long ride from upstate New York back to North Carolina, we'd definitely like to be there for a Friday night dinner. Of course, if we were there for Friday night dinner, we probably might have to stay over. So maybe next year. I don't think we have any graduates next year. Not that they're not doing well in school, just they're not old enough. Okay, with that, let me turn this over to Dave so he can talk to us about Field Day 2023. And he's on his way up here. Uh-oh, he's got coffee. Watch out, he's going to be here a while.
Lemon ginger for the
He's drinking something.
something good. Well, thank you all for coming out. We'll talk about Field Day. And if we can click over to the next slide, please. And Field Day agenda, well, yeah, we'll run through all that, but let's go on to the next. We'll get right into it. Okay. Well, what is Field Day? Field Day is not a contest that was organized by the ARL. Essentially, it's a disaster exercise. It's been going on since 1938, and essentially the intention of it was you were going to perform communications as if you were under disaster conditions. So the idea was that you were going to set up in a field somewhere. That's why they call it Field Day. Set up temporary stations and shelters, and then try to contact within a 24-hour period as many other stations doing the same thing in the United States and Canada primarily. It has turned out to be a smashing success. It's also, if you they take pains not to call it a contest, but it is actually quite competitive, and probably the largest single contest that takes place in North America. Now, the history of it with our club and with the Durham FM Association is we had our own separate field days going on, and we did okay in the rankings. Not the bottom of the pack, but not near the lead. Both of us were about middle of the pack on that, and there was no real improvement in scores. And then some time ago, some members of the DFMA approached us and said, you know what if we combine resources instead of competing against each other, since there were many members of the clubs who belonged to both organizations, and they didn't want to have to pick which one to go to anymore. So we decided to throw in together and start doing that. In the first year, we did okay. And then second year, something started to happen. It started to gel. People started to move a little bit better. And we started moving up the rankings. The second year, we were number 25 nationally. And when you think about that, the fact that there was, at that time, more than 1,500 blogs submitted, that's pretty darn good. Now it's up to more than 2,700 logs submitted the last year. And every year, we progressively kept moving up the ranks. And we got up to the point where we were in the top 10 consistently. So you have that Field Day article where they give the rankings, and the top 10 stations are listed there. We'd end up in the top 10 every time. And then finally, we got as high as we can go. We got to number 2 nationally out of more than 2,500 participants at that time. And the only ones we can't beat are the Potomac Valley Radio Club, because they have this forest of very tall towers and beams and running megawatts and all that. And and as well as a deep pool of really hardcore experienced contesters. Nobody could touch them. So number 2 is as best as we could get. And then COVID happened. COVID pretty much shut down field day. There were very few club operations going on because, you know, people were under lockdown. They didn't want to take the risks of catching the disease. So one response that the ARL did in response to that was they made a rule where people operating from their home or submitting their own logs could declare a club affiliation. So we'll go into that later on in the presentation. But the way that works is you'd submit your log, you're ranked just like everybody else, but in parenthesis was the club aggregate score. So everybody else who also declared that same club affiliation, all those points were totaled up, and that worked very well for us. Last year, when we finally got a field day operation going, we had 6 HF stations operating. We had, let me see. We had 350 CW contacts, 462 digital contacts, and 692 phone contacts. So 1,504 QSOs last year. With the power multiplier and bonus points, we got 4,898 points. However, if you included the home aggregate with that, it was 16,034 points. That ended up ranking us. I mistakenly put on the presentation that we came out as number 13. We're actually number 16 nationally. Not bad at all. So my goal this year is to get us to number 10 if possible. Next slide, please. I might have jumped ahead on what the slide showed. Well, one thing we did last year, being our first field day operation back, we had proved once we had reached number 2 nationally that, yeah, we're competitive. Yeah, we're up there. That's probably as high as we can get. We decided instead to make it more fun for, in particular, for new operators or anybody who hasn't tried field day yet. Like I said, prove we can compete. We're going to make it fun for people, get them blooded into a little bit of competitive contesting, essentially. And also hold to the spirit of field day, where it was emergency communications, trying to talk to other groups. So to make it more fun, we did slim down the operation. We used to be 9, like a 9 alpha club entry, which was 9 HF stations and a VHF station. Last year, we just did 6 HF stations. This year, we're going to be even slimmer. We're going to be 5 HF stations. We also boosted up the power. We went to 100 watts, which, by the way, now is the maximum that they'll permit at field day. So Potomac Valley, maybe we can go after them next year since they can't run megawatts, and we might be able to catch up to them a bit more. But the idea behind the 100 watts is in the past, we did 5 watts QRP. And the reason we did that was you get a 5 times multiplier for every contact. And that's what helped us push our score up. The only problem with 5 watts QRP, well, the good thing is it made us very good operators, made sure our antenna systems were very efficient. But for a new operator, it's very frustrating to be calling 10 or 15 or 20 times when they hear a station calling and they can't hear you because the signal's so weak. So we figured with 100 watts, we'll have a better chance of getting a response more quickly for new operators. Get them a little bit more of an interactive situation going where they don't have to keep calling and calling. Still going to happen out there, but it's not going to be as bad as before. We'll be a little bit more out of the noise. So instead of a 5 times multiplier, we're getting the 2 times multiplier on our contacts. And since we're slimming down a bit, almost all the stations on site will be doing 1 low band and 1 high band, because it runs for 24 hours straight once field day kicks off. So that way we're going to be sure that around the clock, at least one of those bands will be open to work with. Next slide, please. Okay. Essentially, June 24th is field day itself. So from 2 p.m. local time, it starts. ending on 2 p.m. on Sunday. But Friday, June 23rd is our main setup day. That's when we're going to come in. We're going to set up antennas. We're going to run some power drop cords. We are using commercial power under this category. So we need to run some power drops out to some of the stations that are there. And we may not have a tower going up this year, but certainly we'll have a big selection of wire antennas. So we're going to need some help with that. We have all sorts of launching devices for that, but we need people to haul lines. We need spotters to make sure nobody's going to be in the impact zone if I fire a golf ball tipped arrow. So you'll see different methods we have of raising antennas. Safety, we're going to be grounding stations, so we will need some help with putting in ground rods for some of the stations. And that's not just for lightning safety or electrical safety, that's also to cut down on noise between stations, especially since we're going to be running 100 watts fairly close to each other. Eliminating as much noise as you can as possible makes it more enjoyable for everyone else. And like I said, as we need as many people to show up as we can, more hands make light work. So come on out on Friday and give us a hand. It'll give you a chance, if you're new at this, to see how a station is put together as well. So, okay, and then 6 p.m. that evening, we have a big potluck dinner, which John told you about. So that's the biggest social event that the two clubs do together. I highly recommend coming out for that, and we have a good time with it. Wilson usually smokes a few shoulders, and hopefully enough of us else will be bringing a good variety of different dishes. So it's going to be a really satisfying and complete dinner for everyone. Next slide, please. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And yeah, Dee also pointed out that it's not restricted to just the hams who are participating. Their families, friends are more than welcome to come out and join us for the potluck. So which is part of what makes it the biggest social event that we do together. So, all right, Saturday, June 24th is when it will begin. So we're going to start early. This is the final testing of stations, because one thing I tell everybody is always test your stations at home. Make sure you don't want to have a problem happen out there where you might not have the resources you have in your house to fix it and work it out. Get it working at home first. Test everything. If you're trying out a new antenna, sling it up in the trees or something and give it a test shot just to make sure it is working well. But then again, at field day, you'll find once you put everything together, test it again that morning, because I've had that happen to me. It worked fine at home, and all of a sudden I'm trying to test it and nothing's happening. And I had to go through some troubleshooting and finally get it fixed in time for field day to start. One field day many years ago, I got it working again 15 minutes before start time. So my blood pressure was quite high at the just before the start. Okay, 2 p.m. local time on Saturday is when it starts, and we will be going full through for the following 24 hours. We'll be a 5 Delta operation. So that means 5 HF stations. They're considered home stations since part of us will be operating out of the home or very close to it. And we'll be using commercial power. So there will be power drops from Wilson's house to each of the stations. We're not going to be working strictly off battery, which as we had to do for when we were a 9 alpha operation in the past. Again, this is to make it easier for everyone. We could run the 100 watts and not worry about swapping out batteries if we're burning them down too fast. Just making an easier setup for everyone. Dinner on site, details to follow. I'll talk about that later on. I'm going to stay with the ops for now, and toward the end, I'll speak on what some of our meal plans are for that and for breakfast on Sunday morning. So we'll make it a separate issue. Yes.
2 questions on chat.
Go ahead.
The first question was, what time do you believe setup will start?
We start fairly early. I plan to be there probably about 9 a.m. myself. I'll be there the whole day. We'll look at the weather too. I mean, if we're looking at thunderstorms that day, of course, we're not going to be slinging wires up into the trees if there's a thunderstorm. So if it's going to be a hot day, it's often better to get the heavy work done in the morning before it gets too hot. And John is providing a lunch for the setup crew that's on site. So the earlier you get there, the better, and we can get a lot more work done in a more relaxed fashion. Let's put it that way. As early as you can. That's my standard answer. Just I'm usually up on Saturday morning. I'm up with the roosters essentially myself. You don't have to. But my recommendation is if you're doing final setups, you don't want to, the idea behind this is we want to have everybody have a good time. So give yourself plenty of time to do setup. We don't want to rush through things. If you rushed and nervous, you're more likely to have accidents as well. So, yeah, just take your time and like I said, as early on Saturday as possible. And that way, I'll get you in a second, John. That way, you're all relaxed when we're ready to kick off at 2 o'clock on that day. John? I have about 8. Yeah, if you couldn't hear what John said, yeah, I'm going to repeat it. John was saying to let me know. I'm kind of coordinating the help we're going to have on Friday. Let me know if you can. There's some people who have sent me emails. I will be acknowledging you if I have not done so already. So, and I'm going to try to coordinate you into teams based on what you want to help with. And what I say is, don't be afraid. If you don't have technical abilities, don't worry. We'll talk you through it. We sometimes need people just to hold lines or be spotters so we could do something safely. So we will find things for you to do. But if you want to come out and help on Friday, just let me know about it. So that way John can provide us with lunch for everyone who's on site. And we will have drinks available and all that. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, please. No problem. And Sunday, June 25th is the final push. Now, I did mention that we're going 24 hours straight. So if there's one place where we have holes in the operating period, it's the wee hours of Sunday morning or very late Saturday night. There's going to be an 80-meter phone station working. There will be 40 meters will be open during the night. Certainly on CW on the low bands, they'll be chasing some things as well, and certainly digital will be chasing. So I run as long as I can. I will be fueled with Cafe Bustelo as long as I can, but I find usually my body just gives out around 2 a.m. or so. I'm there trying to operate, and I'm literally tilting out of my seat. So we need some people to step in during the evenings. We'll go into a little bit later on that some of the band captains will have sign-up sheets. I know Joe's already posted one. So we'll need operators around the clock, and we'll try to organize times for people to come out for that as well. And don't feel that you need to be tied to one particular station. You want to try different things. That's part of the idea of this. You can try different things as well. Okay, Sunday at June 25th is the final push. Start early. So early morning has some excellent gray line propagation. So some bands will reach out further than you couldn't imagine as the sun's just starting to creep up on the horizon. There will be a donated breakfast on site, and I'll have Dee speak to that shortly. Final hours, you'll find a change sometimes in the operators you're hearing out there. A lot of the big gun stations that were doing runs, and Bruce will explain what a run is, they'll change to hunt and pounce. So sometimes little weaker stations like us will change strategy as well. Instead of trying to do hunt and pounce, we'll switch off into trying to do runs at the time, sit on a position and call and you'll get people coming to you. And the last contacts can be made at 1:59 local time, because as soon as the clock on your computer, and we're going to try to all accurately synchronize everything, as soon as it runs to 2 o'clock, that's it. We have to stop operating, and that's the last thing you put in your log. And then we needed people for setup. We're probably going to need an equal amount or even more people for the tear down of the stations, because a lot of us are going to be very tired from that 24-hour run. And more hands make light work, and more hands make it more safe for everybody in that situation as well. Next, please. This is what I know we have for field day this year. And I'll speak a little bit on the stations I'm operating if Joe wants to give a little summation on what he plans to do. And I believe John is on Zoom as well if he wants to make some comments. But as I mentioned, we're 5 Delta this year. So the 5 stations, we will cover all the bands that are available to us. And this is where the setups are. Some are set up in the garage. Some are up in trailers. And John's station is actually working out of the back of a vehicle with a shelter, which is pretty close to what a field day, quick field day setup operation would be like anyway in an actual disaster. Now you'll notice that under the garage, there's an asterisk: accessibility stations. The problem with the exception of John's, with the trailer and with the MCU, the mobile communications unit where CW is going to be done, they all have steps you have to get onto. We have some members who cannot negotiate steps. So our answer to that was to put some stations into the garage, which has a nice flat concrete pad. So if anybody needs to get in there, they can readily come in to those stations, work them there, and you can readily leave as well. So there's no problems for anybody who needs to have any physical accommodations. That's the place to go to where you can operate. Was there another question up that I needed to respond to, or? Yep. Good. Yeah, I saw the question flash. Next slide, please. No worries. I'm not going anywhere. I feel your pain. All right. Yeah, I know the print is kind of small here. So, but station number 1 is going to be the all band digital station. That's going to be in the garage, and it's going to be an Elecraft K3. We're going to try to have every radio out there possibly be on Elecraft K3. Why, Bruce? Yeah, why? Because they have the lowest problems with noise and intermod, and that's what we're trying to avoid, having interference between stations, especially since we're running 100 watts. K3s are probably the quietest, or Elecrafts, I should say, are probably the quietest radios out there, which is why we try to have everyone participating use those if possible. I have a sound card, an auxiliary sound card that'll be running off one of my laptops. Antennas I will use will be a 40-meter quarter wave vertical. I'll need a little help setting it up. I usually need a team of 4 people to help me put that one up, and pretty neat to see. It's all stacked aluminum and 16 radials, which are steel measuring tapes. The ground plate on it that the mast sits on and the radials go to was a baking dish. So this is, yeah, real high-tech stuff. And then I'll have a G5 RV up in the trees as a backup for 20 meters on digital. Sometimes I kick on a 40 on there as well. Sometimes it hits a different direction than the omnidirectional quarter wave vertical will. And I will also be bringing some lightning arresters and things like that. The club is supplying several computers with for logging, so I'll be utilizing one of those there, as well as bandpass filters that are 100 watt capable. So that's part of our equation for avoiding noise with our signals, is to utilize bandpass filters as we're operating. So it'll cut down on interference with people on another band. You know, particularly everybody says they could hear my digital station. So, when not intended. So, yeah, what can I say? And let's see. There's a ground rod outside of the garage that's already in place, so I won't need one installed for me. I just need to run some braid between my rigs and a heavy gauge wire out to that ground rod. I'm all set. N3FJP will be the logging software I use, and WSJTX or Digipan to make digital QSOs. I usually run FT8, and a lot of the contacts were FT4 last year because it's faster. I do play around on PSK31 because there's still a few QSOs to be had there where people like to use that mode instead of the other digital ones. And I also use PSK31 to capture the W1AW bulletin on Friday night. So it's the easiest way to capture it. And if you want to join the Garage Digi team, talk to me. I'll be putting out stuff on the reflector to round up people who want to work that. Next slide, please. Yep. Yes, sir. Sure. Come on up.
Okay, let me just jump in here. So Dave and I are kind of double teaming this, but you're not going to see me doing anything other than writing. So since Dave is the first band captain, if indeed you're giving any kind of a talk about your particular operation and your setup, what we need to capture tonight is what items you need that you don't have, such that the list can be created and the source can be determined for where those items are coming from. All right, so we'll put Dave down as the guinea pig. And we'll let him look at the cheat sheet. So all I have here right now is a team to help set up the vertical and a club supplied logging software with N3FJP.
And the filters.
Okay. And filters, I have the filters down in another note, but we have OCRA DFMA purchase filters like we had last year. I've checked them all out and I'm going to be bringing them over to Wilson. So when you need the filter, when you're at that point in your setup, just go to Wilson and he'll give you the filters that you need. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, and this particular station, I have all my own equipment there, so I'm pretty good on that. Now, however, when we go to the next slide, right next door to it in the garage is station number 2, and that is 20 and 80 meter sideband. And that, I'm not bringing much equipment at all. That's actually mostly being loaned to me. So Bill NABR is very kindly loaning me his K3, and that's what we will be using for that particular station. I do have a Yamaha headset that I tested on that radio last year. It works fine, so I'm good on that. I will bring a tuner. I have the jumpers. I have the lightning arresters. One thing I might need from Bill or from somebody is the power harness to run the Elecraft. So I'll talk with him on that. I do have spare. The Elecrafts use the Anderson power pole connectors on the back. I have spare harnesses that utilize that. So if I have to, I can go with that. I'm bringing a big honking battery that can actually run both stations. And I know Bruce had expressed some concern if the battery will keep up with 2 stations running. I did it last year. So, and there will be a charger kept on the battery at the same time. The charger does not put out noise. So I'll be good for the duration. Again, filters from the club, a logging computer. And Wilson has very kindly given me access to his home antennas. So I will have a tri-band beam. So this is your chance if you want to work a phone station and have a Yagi antenna to work with a rotator. This is the one that will have it. Wilson's loaning all that particular equipment. He also has a multi-band loop antenna. I had a little trouble loading on some bands with that, so I'll try again this year. And coax switch to select beam or loop. I think I have those, but it's always good to have extras on standby just in case. And same situation. We already have a ground rod at that location, so I'm good on that. And then set up there, sir. Excellent. Welcome, Wilson. All right. And then again, I'll need some help, probably stringing some of the wire antennas up in the trees or running some of the coax for this station as well. And that would be appreciated. Again, these are accessibility stations. It's also the station that's closest to the snacks. My mama didn't raise a dummy. So it's a fun place to operate. Next slide, please. Good timing for Wilson, because the next station I'm speaking of is what will be the MCU, which is our all band CW station. So it'll be located in the MCU, the mobile communications unit that belongs to the Durham FM Association. It does have air conditioning. Team members will be needed for setup and to operate. I'm going to give Wilson a chance to comment on that as well. But they are running a K3. I think they have all the stuff they need to operate it. I'll have Wilson speak to what antenna they're going to use and what help they need for that. Wilson, did you want to jump in on this?
Well, fortunately, we have at least one new CW guy this year, who has already signed up. So that's very exciting. No, I think that's okay. Mostly I'm going to use my big dipole, the 160 vertical and wind to line fed dipole, which is really good on all bands. We might put up something like a high band dipole, but it'll be easy and can be done along with other antenna work probably Friday.
All right, thanks. And good news is you might remember from field days past, we had Danke Hirasawa that used to operate. He asked if he could come play with us this year. So you may have another CW operator to help you out there, Wilson. So
that's exciting. See if you can get them to email me.
I'll do that. I gave him the link to an invite to join the reflector, so he should be in. I gave him the link for this Zoom meeting, but apparently he couldn't make it. So I'll
save the most popular 3 a.m. slot for him.
Very good. Thank you. Anything else, Wilson, or we'll just move on now?
No, I think I'll go
All right.
back to drinking.
Very good. Next slide, please. I can take a cue. All right. And yeah, we already covered this with Wilson, and he's the one to contact if you want to help with the setup, but also more importantly, we need operators, especially during those wee hours for CW. Next slide, please. All right, Joe, along with Bill, will be working out of his trailer out on the field. They're going to do 15 and 40 meters single sideband. Joe's travel trailer is air conditioned. It is working, right, Joe? Yeah, very good. Wilson's loaning him a K3. Let's see. Joe has Kenwood mics that would fit that. And actually, Joe, if you wanted to comment on any of this for the setup, I'm going to bring the mic over to you.
All right. Yep. Big thanks to Wilson for loaning us the K3 again. A lot nicer than the backup radio, which we will have on hand, which is a Kenwood TS570S, but we'll try not to splatter that across the site. Using an off center fed dipole this year. We'll need some help with raising the antenna. Let's see. The needs for the station that we do not have are a ground rod, the bandpass filters. An antenna wire launcher would be great to borrow while we're raising that antenna. But all right. Will we have the pneumatic launcher on site this year? Yes, we used yours last year, and that was great, Paul. So that would be great. Let's see what other notes I've got here. I think that's about it. It is air conditioned. If the weather's unexpectedly cool, we could set the station up out under the awning and operate outside, so that folks with mobility challenges would be able to work that station also. But being when it is and where it is, we expect it probably to be 90 degrees. Yes. I do have power supply covered. I have a laptop, would be happy to use a club supplied one if there's one. If it's, is it already loaded with software and everything? So. Okay, we'll use that. Yep, that's fine. Sure. Yep. Okay. Yep. Be happy to use a club laptop. Thank you. So that's it.
Yeah, the K3 has an Anderson power pole fitting on the back, so. Okay, and that's continuing with Joe, and yeah, we just spoke about all this, so I think we're good. And there will be a power drop made out to his station as well, and we'll need to have a ground rod installed next to his station. And on Sunday, we need that ground rod pulled as well, so. Next, please. And the last station we have is from John N4SJW. He's going to be running our high bands for us today. So 10 meters and 6 meters. My understanding was a double end antenna. We'll see what kind of rig he has. It's a vehicle with a shelter, and we are providing a logging laptop to him. And he's on. So John, if you want to step in and comment about your plans and what help you need, come on in.
Hey, Dave, can you hear me okay?
We got you.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been running various bands out of the back of my SUV for field day out in Colorado. The last one I was at, it snowed actually, but I don't think we're getting any snow this June here in North Carolina. So basically I have a tripod, a 22-foot mast, and I'll probably run my inverted V doublet, which is 300 ohm ladder line down, and I've got an AH4 antenna tuner, which works really, really well. Excuse me. And I'll either use my, I'm getting my ICOM 7100 back, and if those of you know some of the ICOM stuff, it's a great little tiny little rig, and it works really, really well. If not, my backup would be my ICOM 7610, which I really don't want to take the field day, but I've got it just in case. I've got pretty much everything I need. I'm going to run a battery with a battery charger on it, and that seems to work really well, especially on sideband. It doesn't really pull too much current. I'll need a 10-meter bandpass. I do have a 6-meter bandpass filter. Probably for 6 meters, I'm going to use my, for those of you who know PAR antennas, PAR antennas, I've got that Omni Angle for 6 meters, which is an awesome antenna. So if there's anything out there on 6 meters, it'll find it. So that'll be kind of fun. And that's a good 2 bands to pair together. I can go back and forth. 6 meters, from what I remember, does not count for the added station. And it's been real active. In fact, I was on there today a little bit with on 6 meters, and was getting into Texas and Oklahoma, places like that. So real good. I will not be able to come Friday night. I've got a prior engagement. So what my plans are is just to come. I'll get everything ready and packed and ready to go. So I'll be on site probably 0700, 0800 at the latest, but probably about 0700 in the morning. And I just want to check with Wilson that I can just drive out on the field back there if that's okay with him. And I've got one of those big canopies, 10 by 12 canopy, and I basically just take the back door and swing it up, put the canopy over, and I've got a portable workbench and all that stuff. So it's a really nice portable operation, and I haven't done it in a while, and I think it's going to be fun. Of course, I got this big long list, and I'm always going to forget 1 or 2 things, so you'll just have to bail me out here, I guess. I do have a Radio Sport headset, and I've got a second headset that connects together. So for working double, 1 log, one on the radio, that should work out pretty well. So that should be fine. I think that's basically it. So you're going to be able to provide a computer with the software, the logging software. Are you guys Do you have those connected by a local Wi-Fi, or do you just basically just save the logs and hand them in?
It's going to be the latter. So we'll save the logs. When I talk a bit on the logging, I'll suggest everyone do backups. But my tradition at the end of field day is to walk around with a little USB drive, go to each laptop, and downlog the backup files from each laptop, so that I can pull them all together into one master log for the full field day operation. So.
We
Good.
networked one time, John, and that was too many.
Oh man, I feel your pain.
Never again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, we had some of the brightest IT minds, and never mind. It was not pretty. Yeah, that's good. And love to have some folks, especially young folks. 10 meters has been hopping up and down. So it should be, unless we get a storm, it should be pretty good. So, and 6 meters has been, it's a great time of year for 6 meters as well. So should be lots of fun.
John,
And looking forward. Yeah, go ahead, Whistling.
I think you should come sometime soon if possible and check out the site.
I like that idea. You going to be around this week?
Yes, I'm around, unfortunately, almost all the time.
Okay. Yeah, I understand.
There are lots of trees. I hate to see you mess with the mast.
Oh, okay. For some reason, I thought someone was saying you were going to cut the grass, and I was thinking you had this field back there. So, yeah, maybe I need to go run up.
I do have a field, and I am turning it into a wildflower meadow, but that doesn't preclude our using it. And there are actually a couple of ropes already up.
Okay.
I don't know if they would work out or not, but you'd be a lot better off with your dipole 40 feet in the air.
That's fine. I've got an 80 meter, it's 80 meter cut. So that's, 160 feet. Oh God, I forgot my numbers.
130.
130. So that, yeah, and that's fine. We can just, I've got a 75 and 150 foot roll of RG8, the good stuff. So that, if we get reasonably close, that should be fine. I've got the antenna. Let's see, I've got 100 feet, at least 75 feet of ladder lined. So I can put, I can do that too. So yeah, I'll bring both antennas in, but if you already got things set up, that's fine. It makes it a little bit easier then, just hoist them up and away we go.
There are a couple of ways we could do you, and in both of them there are some trees. So yeah, just get on out and let's walk around. You're going to be the only field station besides the MCU and Joe's trailer. So
well, it is field day.
Yeah, we're really truncated this year, not nearly as big.
Yeah, I'm probably going to stack out on the back of the SUV with a big fan, so I'll have to come run in and get cooled down, or so. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Of course, it's going to rain. It's in the regulations. It's always going to rain on field day.
Yeah,
Okay.
of course. All right, thank you, John.
welcome.
And I just want to confirm that you have digital capability also, or are you just planning on doing phone?
I could do digital. I have to do it on a separate laptop, but that's all. Yeah, that's possible. I've got FT8. I've got HRD, so I can do PSK31. I can do Olivia. I can do Throb. I mean, God knows what I can do with that thing. But yeah, let me put that in the mix, and we should be good to go on that.
All right, excellent. Thank you. And yeah, we'll try to scare up an Elecraft radio for you if we can, but otherwise we'll just have to work with what you have. But
with him, with his being on 10 meters, radio quality might not be as big an issue as it is on low band.
Okay, that's true. Okay, and when you arrive on Saturday morning, I'll be up, so I'm sure there'll be a number of people available to help you get set up quickly. So no problem there. All right, thank you, John. Next, all right, I think we went through that. All right, I'm going to bring up, I mentioned before that in response to COVID, there was a rule change in that the ARL made, which allowed home operators to declare club affiliation. And we want to make use of that again this year. So that way we have some people who can't make it out to the field day site, but they could still participate in our field day operation in that manner. They could also do both things. They could operate at our field day site and at home. There's a rule regarding that, but we'll get into that. So essentially, when you operate from home and you're going to submit your log, you want to do the online, submit your log online to the RL. They have a link for that. I'll be posting that link later on as we're corresponding later on. And it gives you this form you fill out with all your information, all your contacts, what bonus points you may have. Of course, your call sign, what class you operated. And then there's a place that has club affiliation. And you click on that, there's a drop-down list. Start typing in Orange County and it'll populate with a few different things on there. The one we want to to click on is Orange County Radio Amateurs and Durham FM Association. So that is what the field day operation is. It's both clubs working together. Last year, there was some confusion because the drop-down list had several different versions of that. I looked at it this year. That's the only one that's on there that has both clubs listed. So that'll block the confusion. Now, they do have Orange County Radio Amateurs by itself. They also have Durham FM Association by itself, but you want to click on the one that has both clubs listed. And then when we wait with bated breath until the scores come out late October, early November, your home station score will be ranked as they do for all the thousands of stations throughout the country. You could see where you ended up in there. But then in parenthesis, they're going to have the club aggregate score. So it'll list Orange County Radio, DFMA Association, and the total number of points from everybody who declared that affiliation. So last year, it was, I forget what I say, how many points it was, but we ended up being number 16 nationally. So my challenge this year is let's try to get us back into the top 10 nationally by aggregate scores. So let's try to at least beat that ranking. And if we can break into the top 10, I'll be quite pleased, as will a number of other people here. That I have their rank number 13 nationally. That was an error. It was actually number 16 when I went back and looked at it, but 13 sounds better. But so the next slide, please. So that's a chance for everybody to oh yeah, there we are. Okay, so at the field day side, we're using laptops that are preloaded with N3FJP Field Day Logger. It's very user-friendly. It will be covered under my license. I can use a call sign at the field day site for all the laptops there, but that's the only place I can do it. I can't give up my license to everybody else operating from their homes. So it's all covered under my license. It has W4EZ. W4EZ will be the call sign we are using. Home stations, you can use any logging. That should be program, not problem. It can be a problem, but but N3FJP is very highly recommended. If you're new to this, it's very intuitive. It's updated to all what the AR rules are for this coming year, what categories get what points, etc. It does need a license. You do need to be licensed for it. Now you can download a copy of it. That's free to use for 20 QSOs, and then that's it. It stops you. If you want to keep on using it for the rest of your life, it's $8.99. So not bad. If you like N1MM, that's free, and they do have field day templates out there you can utilize. A little bit more complicated to learn. If you're familiar with the program, by all means, go with it. Or you can really go the Luddite route and just do a paper log, just run it everything. You lose the advantage of dupe checking and all that by doing that route, but that's open to you as well if you want to do your logging that way. And then I'm going to make a little mini contest out of it as well for all the home stations. Like last year, I had somebody come back to me and says, how come you haven't published all the scores from all the home stations that did the club aggregation? And my answer to him was, well, not everybody sent them to me. So that's what I'm asking you to do. You don't have to give me the fine detail of how many QSOs of each type you did. You can if you want. What I'm really interested in is what your final score is that you submitted to the ARL with your bonus points and everything. And what we're going to do is the top 3 scores will be acknowledged with, well, first of all, everyone sends me a score. We'll get a certificate for participating. Top 3 will have that acknowledged on their certificate. You placed number 1 out of the home stations for field day. And hey, if they beat us at home themselves, if they get a higher score than the 5-station field day station did, more power to them. So, yeah, sure. Yeah, and so everybody gets a certificate, but the top 3 will also get acknowledgement on that certificate, a little special thing there. And I'm suggesting to the clubs that we get some sort of nominal prize to the top 3. We'll think of something for them. Yeah, we always have those flashlights from the DFMA door prizes, but I think we could do something a little bit more than that. So I want to make it a little bit more, again, adding to the dimension of this being a fun field day and get a little bit of a competitive element just within the clubs themselves. So we'll go ahead and do that. And one field day rule to remember, though, is that you may not contact a station from which you have already operated. So, for instance, you come out and operate field day at the site, and then you decide to go home and operate at home. The one station you can't call is the field day site. You can talk to the rest of the world, but not the field day site, and that works the other way around as well. So that, just keep that rule in mind. If you're working from 2 different stations, or if you visit someone else's home station and work from there as well, the rules apply there. You can't contact any other station that you have worked from. So I think this rule was put in place years ago because some larger clubs are doing like round robins with their members running home and calling around and padding up their scores that way. They put a stop to that kind of thing. Next slide, please. Sir. Oh, Karen. It's on here. We are getting to it. I'm slowly working my way to it. Okay. Yeah, we got that. Some people ask, what is the exchange we need to make for field day? And they just require, of course, the call sign of the station you're operating from, what class of station it is. There's different classes, and the number of HF stations that are there. So you're going to hear, for instance, W2LOP, 5 Alpha Northern New Jersey is, for instance, is one exchange I could think of. The 5 means they're operating 5 HF stations. Alpha is a club station that's operating low power, essentially under emergency conditions. There's different kinds. If you hear Foxtrot F, they're actually operating out of an EOC. The 2 different kind of home stations you're going to run into are Delta, which uses commercial power like we're doing, or Echo, which is emergency power. They're running off batteries or generators, but it's a home station. So, and then the other part of the exchange is your ARL, or in the case of Canada, the RAC section, essentially. And for us, it's the state, North Carolina, November Charlie. So as you can see at the field day site, CW Digital, that's what we put out, W4EZ 5 Delta NC, or on phone, it's Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu 5 Delta November Charlie. You'll notice there's no signal report. They don't bother doing that. If you can hear them, if they can hear this information, that's what we have. So you won't be hearing, what's that again? What's that again? Oh, you're a 5x9. You won't hear that kind of thing going on. Next, please. Okay, bonus points. Everybody I will do at the field day site. Everybody at home, you will make your 50 points if you do an online log submission. They give you 50 points for that. There's 100 points to copy the W1AW Field Day Bulletin. One of the links I'll be putting out on the reflector in the file section is the the field day packet, but also I'll break out some sections of it. They have the W1AW operating schedule when they put out this bulletin. So just for copying that and submitting that with your log, you get 100 points. And I mentioned to you that I go on PSK 31, copy it there, and then I just cut and paste that into a word processing program, save the file. I got it. It's all in there. They also do it by CW. They do it by phone. I'll caution you by phone. There's a lot of people who don't like field day. So when on the phone portion, you'll hear a lot of carriers coming up trying to drown it out. Yeah, people being jerks. You don't get that on the digital portion so much. 100 points for satellite contact. I know there's a couple of members from each club that are going to try to do that this year. So work a satellite, we'll get 100 points. I believe Aurora is working on that, and there's one other person I heard of who's going to try it as well. So we'll get that. An elected official visit and a served agency official visit. We'll see what happens. In the past, we've had a congressman. We usually have Chris Pope come over from the Orange County EOC. He counts as a served agency official, so he comes on site. We'll document that and make sure we got 100 points. Media publicity, if we are covered. I'm not sure if we'll chase that since we're not really on a public ground. We're more in a private property. And social media publicity. Yeah, I do have a Facebook field day page for us, so I might bring up something on there so we can claim that 100 points for us. Here's another easy one for us to get. 100 points natural power. If someone has a solar panel and you got a little 4 amp hour battery, charge up that battery just using the solar panel, hook it to your rig, you make 5 QSOs. Is it 5 QSOs? Yeah, we get that bonus point right there. Sam, you got your hand up. Yes. I'll look at the rules. I think it had to be some kind of club or for the full field day site. Now, for your home station, you could do that. Yeah, and for yourself. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, they made one rule this year, which makes it a little bit harder. It used to be that you had to make the effort to ask media to or send a release to the media, and you got the points whether or not they used it. This year, they made it that you have to have a response from the media. They do have to cover it for us to get the points. So we can try. And if they send someone out as part of the documentation, I'll have a month after field day ends itself to submit any documentation. If we have a paper that puts it out and I can copy the article, yeah, or we could find out what time they broadcast that and everything, just document all that, and we could get the points for that. Yeah. Okay. And here's another easy one we can get, 20 points each up to 100 points for youth operators. So anybody 18 or under, if we can get them to operate from our stations and you document it on your log. We did one youth operator last year, so we got 20 points. So we can get that and 4 more this year, we'll get the full 100 points. So this is where I encourage people to bring out young people to come and participate. And then 100 points for educational activity if we want to run that. I know D in the past had done the programming for Baofongs and all. Okay, we could put that out there. Yeah. Next, please. All right, this is where I'm going to hand it over to Bruce, and they're going to talk a little bit about actually working the radios, what the strategy would be out there. Yes.
Read through these. You want to read through these?
Just let's just send them to me and I'll sort that out.
All right. Just let me bring up 2 things that got brought up tonight as far as needs. And I've got a list here. I'm going to put them together, send them to Dave. I can copy the band captains on them too, if you want me to, because it's by band station. There was a lot of talk about power drops. Dan is not going to be there. He was one of the people that was very instrumental in the past. I'm not sure if Wilson has that worked out. I don't know. I just wanted to raise that because everybody's kind of looking at power drops, and it might not be the same as last year or the year before. The other thing was ground rods. I don't know if we have a ground rod pounder, Dan. Yeah.
I have the pounder.
Good.
There's our comment.
I have the ground rods stored at my house. I will bring those up to you, Wilson. Also that tool that to pull the rods out. One comment about the power cords. I mean, with not having the large motorhome there from Steve and whatnot, you're all closely gathered. I don't think you need that power panel we were putting out on the tree. That was a lot of work. So all you need is a power cord, drop cord that will reach into Wilson's garage. And that would only be just the one from the MCU, which it already has, I think, a cord long enough to reach into there. And Joe, and that should take care of the power. The only comment, Wilson, you probably want Joe and the MCU on separate breakers, circuits, since they're running air conditioners. And John's going to be close too, I understand. So I think that covers it.
Closer they get, the antennas close too.
One comment about the ground rods. You need to make sure that your trailer, the AC power, and your radio are all bonded together. You don't want your body to ever be the fuse connecting any of those three together. That's the whole purpose about the safety on that.
Thanks, Dan. So those are some of the things we used to just take for granted, because when we were running 9A, we had a team associated with power, a team associated with grounding, a team associated with safety, and then all the rest of us just put together our antenna, our stations. Okay. Any questions before I tell you how to make all the 2,000 or 3,000 contacts you're going to make? Okay. Dave talked about 2 ways to make contacts. Some reason I'm talking contracts. My oldest daughter's in the process of buying a house and I've been working with her. So that's the contract. Contacts, search and pounce or run. I highly recommend running. But let's start with search and pounce. Okay. Search and pounce. You tune across the band. You'll listen to somebody calling CQ. It's less stress. You can just type their call sign in your logging software. As Dave already said, the logging software will tell you if it's a dupe or not. You'll learn that, or if you are familiar with N3FJP, you've already know what that looks like. But I strongly suggest when you get there Friday, okay, sometime Friday, the laptops will be there. Bring up N3FJP and just play with it a little bit. Okay, plug in a call, make it, simulate a contact, plug in the same call on the same band, and then you'll see what a dupe looks like. So I strongly recommend you get familiar with that. Dave had a link in here back farther in the presentation, and we're going to try to get this posted on YouTube, but I think Dave was going to send it out anyway. There's a link in here that will take you to an N3FJP training YouTube section. I highly suggest you go take a look at that if you're not familiar with it. But search and pounce, you're turning across the band, whether you're on CW or sideband, you're doing something if you're on digital. I'll learn how to spell FT8 sometime in my life, maybe. But if you're on CW or sideband, you're tuning across the band, you hear a call sign, type it into the computer. If you haven't worked them, then do whatever you would do for your station. I'm an N3MM user, so I just have it all keyboard, all programmed, so I hit the button I need to hit. I believe you can do the same thing with N3FJP. If it's on CW, you can push a function key or something, or use your paddle, okay, to send your call out. If you're on sideband, it's easy. It's either push to talk or Vox, do whatever you need to do, put your call out. If the person doesn't come back to somebody, don't wait. Send your call out again immediately, because maybe there was 5 or 10 people calling that person at the same time, and that person was unable to copy anybody. Well, if you wait until somebody else starts calling and you say, oh, they're calling, I'm going to call too. Well, now you're at least in another group of 2, 3, 4. Okay, so if you put your call out quickly and there's nothing there, the person did not come back, put your call out again right away. Okay, so that's really the big trick to search and pounce. Tune, type, call, and don't wait around too long. Okay, and really that one there is the comment up on the slide about timing. It's all about timing. If you wait a long time, the person's calling CQ field day, you know, N1LN. If you kind of wait around and then you throw the call out, you lost. Okay, you've got to be quick. You've got to be ready to do it. You got to be right on top of your game with both CW and sideband. Dave, I think already mentioned this, but the same call sign may be worked on different bands. I mean, Joe's working 40 and 15 sideband. He can work everybody on 40 meters and he can work all the same people on 15 meters. That's legal. Wilson's going to be working 80 through 10 meter CW. He can work the same station on all bands. Okay. Digital, you can work the same station on all bands. Okay. You just can't work the same station twice on the same band on the same mode. Okay. John is going to have 10 meters and 6 meter sideband and digital. He can work me, for example, N1LN on both 10 meter sideband and 6 meter sideband. And then he could work me on 10 meter FT8 and 6 meter FT8. Same call, but different modes. Okay, so think of that while you're going through, if you're running multiple bands or multiple modes at the same place. Okay, bottom bullet, depending on how long you stay on one band, you may find out you've run out of stations to work. Now, when you're running 5 watts, you probably wouldn't run out of stations until sometime Sunday because a lot of them can't hear you, but they'll be able to hear you now. All right. So if you're fast tuning across the band, plugging in, working, then you go maybe up the band, then you go down the band. What you're going to find when you're searching pounds is you're going to find a lot of the same stations that you've already worked. So your typing fingers are going to get a big workout and you're not going to make any contacts. Okay. So you may have found out relatively quickly within the first 2 hours that it seems like, quote unquote, you've run out of stations to work until the stations change. Dave made a comment earlier, and I totally agree with that. The big stations are going to be running. They're going to be running all the time until probably 11 o'clock or so Sunday. And then for the last 3 hours, they might be search and pouncing. That's when you're going to find somebody else. You know, you're not going to hear them calling CQ. All right. That's when the only way you'll get them is if you call CQ. Lori, could you go to the next slide? So running. This is the way to make contacts. In my opinion, this is the way our score went up. Okay, because in CW, all we do is run. We do some search and pounce late in the night, but most of the time we run. You call CQ, somebody calls you. After you're done working that person, somebody else calls you, somebody else calls you, somebody else calls you. So instead of you being the person that's calling in the pileup when you're running search and pounce and you're you're potentially one of 10 stations that you're trying to work, you know, that other person that's calling CQ, they're all trying to work you. It's better to be the person chased than the chaser. Okay. So if you're able to run, try it. Now, rule number 1, you're in charge. Okay. There's a link on the next slide. We won't go there yet, but you'll see it. I think you've all heard it last year, at least if you were at the DFMA meeting. It's a link off of the OCRA website that is actually Lori doing a sideband run from home. And she's running, I think her rate at that time was somewhere around 140 Qs an hour, which is good. It's darn good. But it's not so much the speed, it's the technique. She knows she's in charge. If you're the one that's operating, you know you're in charge. So if multiple stations call you and you can't copy any of them, but you can copy a couple of letters, that's what you need to do. You need to start pulling out the letters. Okay. So if you're not able to copy the full call sign, as it says in the fourth bullet, state the letters you have and ask for a repeat. For example, the station with Alpha Bravo in the call, please come again. Okay. What you're going to find is people don't pay attention. All right, so you may still get 3, 4, 5 people calling you. That's the good news, almost, except you still can't copy the guy. Could you flip the slide? I think it's here. Yeah, top bullet. Only the Alpha Bravo, please come again. So you're not getting rude. You're just demonstrating that you are the person in control. And you do that as many times as you need to, as long as the Alpha Bravo station is still there and the person hasn't given up. Okay, but you don't need to worry about, I'm not fast enough. You don't need to worry about, gee, this is hard to do. Pick out a couple letters, go back and say, with a station with the XYZ, the N1, the WB2, you know, something that you get out of that transmission, go back in your response. Work the person, you know, same thing that Dave said with the, you know, as it says up there, W7AB 5D North Carolina. Well, that's what you would say if the Alpha Bravo station was W7AB. Okay, and they put the exchange in, you know, they send you 1 Bravo Utah and you, thanks, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu field day. You don't go CQ, just Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu field day. They know you're calling CQ because you're on that frequency, you own that frequency and you're running. Okay, you also don't need to say, Whiskey 7 Alpha Bravo, W4 Echo Zulu, 5D North Carolina. They know who you are. They called you. Don't waste the time giving your call over and over and over again. Okay, if you're calling CQ field day, Whiskey 4 Echo Zulu, that's enough. You don't need to do CQ field day, calling CQ field day. You don't need to do all of that. You're running 100 watts. Everybody else is too. Okay, so you're going to be one of the better signals on the band. All right. So brief, concise, think your emergency communications. You know, the shorter the message, as long as the message contains the content that it needs to, that's as long as it needs to be. Okay. If you've been calling CQ for a while, or maybe you're goes on 40 meters. Okay. During the day is on 40 meters and it'll probably be open for a lot of the East Coast anyway. If things slow down, change bands, go to 15. If you're in the MCU with Wilson, you know, you got 80, 40, 20, 15, and 10. If one band slows down, change from run to search and pounce, change from 20 to 15. One thing you need to remember, regardless of what band you're on and what operating position you're at, change the band pass filter. Okay, we're not running 5 watts. You'd still need to change them if you're running 5 watts. But if you're running 100 watts, those filters are low power bandpass filters. They're designed for probably between 150 and 200 watts. But if you use a bandpass filter that is designed for a band that you are not on, you're going to get that little core all warmed up and you're going to destroy the filter. And they're a couple $100 a piece. So changing bands is good, but it's mandatory that you change the filter when you change bands. Joe? And point 2, which is equally important, and maybe we could get N3 FJP to put a flasher on. You've changed the band. Have you changed the bandpass filter? Something like that, but that's right. So unless your radio is connected to the computer, and I don't know if any of them are going to be, except for probably the digital stations, but I think digital wise, you're using a different computer for logging than you are for digital. So you're probably still not connected to the computer. If your computer is connected to the radio, and all the K3s are able to do that, and N3 FJP is smart enough to do that, it will automatically change. But I don't think that's happening. Okay, so and N3 FJP is easy to change. There's a drop down for band. Just change it from 40 to 20 or 15 to 20 or 80 to 40 or whatever.
They helped me on winter field day. We had a network. Every time somebody changed band, without telling nobody, popping everybody's screen, it's like, hey, you're on the same band I am.
Yeah, if you didn't hear Jose, that's a good reason to be networked. He was saying that his group that he was operating with was networked, and it was a really easy way to find out somebody moved to a band that they shouldn't be on because there was already a station on that band. One good point. If you rewind to the slide that Dave put up, this will absolutely not happen at the OCRA DFMA Field Day, because the way Dave has them split up, there are no two operating positions that are operating the same band and the same mode. It's very possible that Dave could be on 20-meter sideband, and we could be, or not be, I'm not here this year, but Wilson, the CW group, could be on 20-meter CW. That's fine, okay? But if, you know, there's two stations, if Dave decides, if John's on 10-meter sideband and somebody at Dave's garage station decides, well, let's try 10-meter sideband, right off, we've got a bunch of problems. One, we may not have an antenna. Two, we don't have the bandpass filter there. So whatever bandpass filter is hooked in, you just blew it up. Three, you can't work anybody because John has probably already worked them. So you have no way to control dupes because we're not networked together. So stay within the band classifications that the sites are set up for that Dave has. Okay, and this link here, which, you know, is a link right off of the NC OCRA homepage, or at least website anyway. It's a past recording that Lori's running some stations. I don't think we can bring it up. It doesn't work. We tends to blow up the Zoom link here if we try to bring up anything like that while we're on Zoom. But, you know, if you want to, if you haven't heard it before, listen to it. Essentially, you'll hear how to run, you'll hear how to be in control, you'll hear how to get clarification on call signs, and you'll even hear a group of people that don't want to pay attention to Lori, and she forces them to, because she has to say only the station with come back. And that was not done for this slide. That's just a normal way it happens. Any questions? Back to you, sir. Oh, there you go. There's your question.
Comments, questions? Okay, one other thing we're going to go back to is the really important stuff, meals. So we have the potluck covered. We have lunch for the setup on Friday. Dee, did you want to comment on the plans for Sunday breakfast?
Okay, we're going to do essentially the same thing we did in previous years, except one difference. We're not collecting any money. I'm going to provide the normal breakfast. That's pancakes, maple syrup, sausage, probably some eggs and that kind of stuff, some juice and all that. And you know, we'll have it there probably around 9 o'clock Sunday morning. The only thing I would ask, if you're planning to be there and you have dietary needs, and I mean something simple, if you want vegetarian, please let me know. That's about it, because otherwise, if you want sugar-free, you know, whatever, we'll bring your that's it. We will have a grill there and so on. Try and keep it simple, and we should have a good time.
All right, thank you. And that leaves dinner on Saturday evening. And being that we're low on manpower, on cooking and that kind of thing, one thing I was considering was just plain doing a pizza run that evening, just so we can have something to eat, something quick and easy to do. There's already one member of the club who volunteered to make the run to pick it up if we go ahead and do that. So I will be contributing towards that pizza. Again, we're not going to be collecting by heads. And if anyone else wants to kick in towards the pizza as well, we could do that. I'll try to coordinate how many we're going to need that evening and get an order in early to Papa John's or whoever, so they have time to prepare it. And it was Ed Neely who volunteered to make the run to pick that up. And we'll have everything all prepared for when he wants to make the run. I think we'll just make it simple that evening instead of trying to run a grill and all that. In the future field days, we may get back to running the grill on the evenings if we get more participation, more logistical support, shall I say. But this year we want to concentrate on the operations, but keep it fun for people involved, and also keep it fun for nobody to get really overwhelmed with trying to do setups. So we'll make it a little bit more easy for everyone. One thing we're going to need, because it's partly a safety issue, is we're going to have the coolers and stuff there. We do need to keep a good supply of soft drinks on hand, water and soft drinks. Because if it gets hot, we need everybody to stay hydrated. So we need to work out the logistics on that. John? Great.
We'll have sugar Gatorade. No sugar, no sugar Gatorade. I don't think we're planning to do sodas again this year, like we did. We did do
Yep.
sodas last year, so. if
Okay.
sodas, you need to bring their own. We'll have coffee available. But that's
Good.
it.
The important stuff. Okay, if you couldn't hear it from John, he says there are plans to have Gatorade and water, ice water and all that on hand. Coffee will be available. We're not planning on sodas, so I suggest if you want sodas, bring your own. I will bring my cooler, so I'll have my stuff. And yes, I will be bringing the mocha pot, so I will be running Cafe Bustelo to help people stay wired and run into the evening hours as long as they can, as long as their bodies can hold out and operate at night. And I guess the last comment I make is keep an eye on the reflector. That's going to be my main source of communication. I'm going to try to coordinate what groups we have. I mentioned operators at the different stations. Ideally, we'd want 2 operators at a time. One would be working the radio, making the contacts. The other person will be operating the logging computer, and then you all can switch off. And we'll try to get that going for each station. So Joe already put up a sign-up list. I'll try to emulate the same thing for the stations in the garage and for Wilson as well with the CW stations. So, oh man, putting me to shame. He's going all high tech on me there. All right, Karen. Absolutely. Well, when we do the potluck, yes, we can bring stuff as well. And leftovers from the potluck, and I suggest everybody grab some snacks and to throw on the table out there. So we'll have a supply of snacks as well in between meals. So we don't want to go too crazy trying to plan heavily on food. We're going to try to keep it easy. And, I'm buying pizza. So, I'm in a better position this year. Like 3 months ago, my mortgage got paid off. So I can, yeah. So I can afford to get us some pizza. So someone else can do it next year. Any other questions before we close up on this? Was there anything online, Lori? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you all. And like I said, keep attention to the reflector, and we'll make this a fun and memorable field day this year. Let me hand it over to Bruce.